Hello people, today I'm doing a review of The Northman. This is the third feature film directed by Robert Eggers. His first film, feature film being The Witch, and then The Lighthouse, and most recently, The Northman. The Witch I have not seen, and I've seen The Lighthouse, which I think is a very good movie, held up immensely by Robert Eggers and the two leads, and the gorgeous cinematography. And so, expectations, I didn't know what to think going into this movie, because movies like this, in the Dungeons and Dragons time period, I've never cared for that much, and it's just the whole Dungeons, Dragons, Kingdoms, and vengeance kind of driven time period films have never been entirely my thing. There's a couple that like I really love, like The Revenant is like top 20 for me. I love that film. And like for example, one I just didn't click with is a movie I still think is a good film, just not one that's not for me, is like Ridley Scott's The Last Duel. I think it's a very good movie, but I couldn't give it a higher score than like an 8 because it's just not necessarily my thing. So going into this movie, I was expecting it to be a very well-directed movie that just might not be for me. But this film was for me. I really liked this movie, and it's easily my favorite compared. I like this movie more than The Lighthouse. This movie was bonkers. It's been such a long time since I've seen a movie capture scale like this in camera with like no practical effects, because like we have movies like Dune, which is like a phenomenal movie, and it captures the scale like no other movie has before, but that's littered with, you know, green screen CGI, very good green screen and CGI where felt like I can barely tell. It's just, you get a different feeling when you know for a fact, like, you feel the weight of everything within the camera, and they got it on the camera. Of course, there's some stuff in this movie that had to be CG, if you know what I'm talking about, if you've seen the movie. But, yeah. And I'll say, most of the time I find these films, like, kind of predictable, because, you know, they always feel like they kind of go the same way. This film, did not go the way I expected. There's some things here that just completely took me off guard, and I was kind of blown away by how much my expectations were subverted throughout the whole entire length of this movie. And speaking of, like, going back to what I was talking about earlier, when I was talking about the scale of everything, the cinematography obviously has a lot to do with it. This one, easily one of the best looking films of 2022. Like, up there with the Batman, maybe even better looking than the Batman. Like, that, to me, I just love the look of the Batman, but this movie is just so brutal. You feel it, just you feel it more than anything. You really feel like the on-location sets. You feel the brutal kills. You feel the weight of them holding a sword. Like, my major complaint with some MCU films recently is I don't necessarily feel the weight whenever a punch is punched, whenever a sword is drawn, or MCU is more so whenever a gun is shot. But like, that's why I love the apartment fight in No Way Home so much. And in The Northman, it's like the whole entire movie is the apartment fight. Just every single thing just swings at you, and it feels like you're there. You don't necessarily feel the pain. It's not like kind of gory in that way. It does get gory, but it's not like gory like torture gore, if that makes sense. And yeah, also hair and makeup team for this movie, phenomenal job. And let's talk about the cast. Alexander Skarsgard, whoa, where was this? When I first heard Alexander Skarsgard, I was like, the bland lead from Godzilla vs. Kong. But after this movie, I'm like, oh wow. And that's the only movie I could recently remember seeing him in, and I apologize if he's been in another small film that I just haven't seen. And yeah, I don't want to sound like a Alexander Skarsgård hater, because I'm definitely not now. But you know, that's the only movie in recent memory I can remember him in. And of course, we have Nicole Kimman, who was just great in this movie. And going into this movie, I was like, really, Nicole Kimman? But going out of the movie, I'm like, oh wow. Anya Taylor-Joy, I think she's a great actress, one of the best young actresses we have out there, and I love that she's doing films like this. And yeah, what else is there to talk about? The pacing of this film is not, usually these films are paced rather slow, and I expected to feel the runtime about 20 minutes into the movie. I was like, okay, we're about to slow down, and I'm going to feel the runtime, and it's going to be a good movie. It's just, I'm going in expecting for this movie not to be for me. But I was pleasantly surprised that the movie still held my interest after like the first 20-30 minutes. I was like, fairly, like, pretty intrigued from all the way up until the end of the movie. And most of the time movies like this don't do that for me. But this movie, I didn't really feel the runtime at all. I felt the potential of me feeling bored, and so I felt like I was going to, and then I didn't. I was like, whoa. Willem Dafoe also plays a very small role in this movie, and he's great in the very small role that he's in. And Ethan Hawke, he's in it great as well. And things get really like wacky and strange in this movie. But I don't think they ever overdid it. Sometimes art house time period films like this do some like really bonkers things. And this movie doesn't, it does it, but it doesn't overdo it like somehow some other films might. This movie gets that perfect amount of wacky strangeness that I like, and just kind of like, but still enough for you at least, kind of like not really think about it too hard, because at the end of the day, the story is fairly simple. It's revenge. Well, they keep on saying vengeance. I was like, 2022 is a word for vengeance, 2022 likes some vengeance. And I was expecting Batman to show up in the end. Vengeance won't change the past. Not mine or anyone else. I'm kidding. But, yeah, The Northman is a great movie. Is it my favorite movie of the year? It's up there, but I still think I prefer Batman. And I feel like if this movie is absolutely like your thing, you love time period, this type of time period, this type of brutalness, this is 1000% for you. And this is a must see. This is a Dolby must see. I'm surprised that my AMC theater is actually putting a small, well, it's not a small movie, but a art film like this in a Dolby theater. And so good job AMC for doing that, because the Regal near me won't put this in the top theater. But yeah, so that's great. See it in Dolby. And yeah, I'm going to give The Northman a 9.3 out of 10. I know it's not a perfect score, and I know it technically deserves a higher score, and I 1000% acknowledge that. It's just, my scores, when I get that high, I'm like, I have to boil it down to, how does it line up with my taste? And like I said, this movie clicked with me, and it's going to go down as like one of the best like time period revenge tales there is in the future. It's just, time period revenge tales aren't necessarily my kind of thing. And don't comment down below saying, you don't respect true cinema, because I love like art house films, as we all know. So yeah. Anyways, like, share, subscribe, and stuff like that. And adios.